Hello again, YouTube. Level Hawes, prior enlisted Marine, military history buff, and just all around somebody who does a lot of research. With a little bit of tech talk this time. One of the things that has particularly got my interest is, as I've said in previous videos, that trains are the most efficient way to move a large amount of freight that still exists. It has been that way since the beginning of trains. Well, there's one train that absolutely blew my mind. It's called Hyperloop. And Hyperloop is it basically, in a nutshell, actually is an underground train. It uses a little bit of air to assist it in this regard, but the top speed of this bad boy is about 700 miles an hour. And to put that in perspective, it's almost cracking the sound barrier. It is transsonic in its speeds. So, to put it to you this way, it's like I hopped on a plane in 2007 and flew all the way to Salt Lake City. This was from Atlanta, Georgia to Salt Lake City. This was the Salt Lake City was a layover on the way to Ontario, California, where eventually I found myself in 29 Palms. So I looked around, see nothing but desert, and I'm like, crap. Okay. But the longest stretch of going from Roanoke to Atlanta to Salt Lake to Ontario was 5 hours. It was that leg of the journey that was between Atlanta and Salt Lake. The plane was probably moving at about 400 knots. That train moves almost twice as fast as that plane did. So imagine about maybe 2.5, 3 hours, you could make the same trip. That is insane. And that would be something that I would actually very much favor for both passenger and freight usage. Because, quite simply, because of the fact is, like, there's a lot of people that are complaining about the inconvenience of air travel anyway, going through the TSA. One of my buddies right in Roanoke, Virginia, actually, we were in uniform, so we had our camis on, and one of my buddies was strip searched by the TSA. It's like, are you kidding? He's one of the friendlies. Yeah, it's like, come on. How many people would actually consider doing that, knowing that's what's happening to them? Not to mention, there's a lot of people that fear flying in the first place. And yes, there is some things to be said about the safety features, but right now the person who's actually making Hyperloop trains, the company, I should say, that's making Hyperloops, are actually looking into making basically a route that goes along the East Coast from New York. So down the eastern seaboard. And I was like, I forget where exactly it's supposed to end up. I think it was like New York to Atlanta or something like that. I mean, but it could actually make that trip remarkably fast. And granted, it'll probably stop a few times along the way, as trains often do. But even if it did, we're talking about cutting a whole hour off your time, and you don't have to sit there in the airport waiting on the plane after you've just been violated by the TSA. Or, it's like in my buddy's case, strip searched. I was like, that's a little personal. It's like, do you need me to bend over and cough or something? Yeah, I was like, yeah. And Hyperloop could cut a whole hour off of that trip. You show up, you get on the train, you zip right over, and you might stop a few places along the way, but by the time you get there, you've gotten there in 4 hours, not 5. Maybe even less than that. Because you're just plain booking it. And again, it would be awesome to use it for freight purposes. I don't know how viable it is for freight purposes because I don't know how easy it would be to load freight onto these things. I mean, could you just go up and have like a tram go or a forklift just put pallets of freight all up and down it and then just have the tram or forklift take the pallets of freight off of it? I mean, that would actually be pretty good. I was like, but I would firmly believe that would be a really good idea going forward. It does excite me in the fact that of how they're able to achieve these speeds. Now, how exactly it works, I haven't done enough research to do into that, but the fact that they can achieve that kind of speed, and to my knowledge, they haven't had any real issues out of it. They do have some engineering challenges to get it out of the way, but still, it's like it's 3,000 miles across the pond to jolly old England. Like, say they managed to put a hyperloop line that follows the bottom of the ocean. Wow. You could be in jolly old England, and let's see, 700 miles an hour. Let's see. 3 hours would be 21. 4 hours would be 2,800. You could be there in just over 4 hours. Wow. You could be in England in 4 hours and change. Yikes. Kind of brings the world a little bit closer together, doesn't it? So, it would actually decrease the amount of people that are air traveling, relieve the amount of pilots that are in shortage right now, and would actually make it so that way there's another travel option. If you don't feel like driving across the country and you don't care about the scenery, you can just book it. And I'm looking forward to seeing what that thing can do once it actually becomes viable passenger lines. I might even ride it a few times myself. Because honestly, I haven't been on a train since I was about 4 years old, and it was an old coal train. It was basically a rolling museum. It was nice. Although I do have to admit, when they let me into the boiler room, I did burn myself on the fire there. I did burn myself inside of in the engine, or the engine itself. Yeah, that was a nice little burn. But I still favor trains quite heavily. So, Hyperloop. Feel free to look them up. They're awesome. You're awesome. I've been Lovell. You guys have yourself a good day now.